Prosser.
Mr Speaker, I'm actually relieved to be standing to take a call on behalf of New Zealand First, what will be my final call in the debate on this bill, and I'm relieved, Mr Speaker, because at the end of this process, a bit like the pulling of a tooth, it will at long last be over, sort of. In fact, it won't really be over at all because, as I've said throughout the various stages of this bill, we are destined to revisit it again almost immediately. And we are destined, or doomed, if you prefer, to do that because, as others have said, this is a bill of the type which does come before this House with rather regular monotony. Mr Speaker, this House has passed, in fact, no fewer than 66 bills bearing the name Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Bill. And that's 66 based on my count from the listings available on the Legislation New Zealand website. They date back to 1926, and the last one, the latest one to go through, which I've been able to find, was from the Reserves and Other Lands Disposal Act 2003. So, and if we add to that Acts of this House bearing the title Reserves and Other Lands Disposal and Public Bodies Empowering Act, then there are another 19 of the very same type in the statutes of this country, Mr Speaker, and they date back to 1901. And that was 6 years before New Zealand even became a country, even before we gained self-government. 6 years prior to becoming a country, we were already disposing of reserves. So we have a total of 85 bills of this type, Mr Speaker, in the annals of this Parliament, going back 114 years at an average of roughly one every year and 4 months. So we are, in fact, overdue for another one, Mr Speaker, and in fact, if it wasn't for the fact that this particular bill has languished on the back burner of the government's priority stove for 6 years, 2 entire terms of Parliament, we might in fact be due for another 2. And that was my point in the second reading, Mr Speaker, and again during the Committee of the Whole House. Mr Speaker, this bill is now so outdated and so much of what it started out with is now so superseded and irrelevant that I genuinely believe that it should be scrapped in its entirety or sent back to the Select Committee where a fresh set of eyes can go over it and be brought back to the House in a form that can include all the new cases which will inevitably have popped to the surface since the initiation of this bill 6 years ago and now. Mr Speaker, during the Committee of the Whole House, I did note that of this bill's original 17 items and 58 original clauses, something like 11 of those items and 21 of the clauses have now been dealt with or superseded or amended or done away with altogether by other legislation in the 7 years since this bill was drafted. And there will be more, Mr Speaker. There will be more that have not been noted. There will be more that come to the surface. There will be others that will need to be included in the next bill, which, as I say, will have to immediately follow this one through the House. We will pass this bill, obviously. The House has indicated, Mr Speaker, and the government obviously has the numbers, so we are going to pass this bill. It is going to happen. I have registered my disappointment and my party's disappointment about that, in the sense that because government members themselves have admitted that there are people out there whose lives have been affected and continue to be affected by the matters which this bill seeks to address, and the fact that they have had to wait so long for some sort of redress is frankly unacceptable. I don't intend to take up any more than is absolutely necessary of the valuable time of the House in revisiting yet again everything that is wrong with that part of the process, Mr Speaker. I've said time and again that government members do have the option of either scrapping this bill or sending it back to the Select Committee for a complete overhaul, and we know that they will do neither. We also know that we'll be back here debating yet another one of these, in some ways, banal pieces of legislation, which will be the 87th after this one since 1901, possibly before the year is out, but certainly before the term of this Parliament is out. For that reason, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First does not support this bill. We believe that's the only sane position that any party can take on it. Thank you.
David Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Just want to take a